Chazak u'Baruch. Mincha Be'ezrat Hashem is going to be 4:25. Please be on time. We're going to talk about the halacha that is not connected to Hilchot Tefillah necessarily and directly. We're going to talk about Inyanat Deyoma, of the importance or the halachic significance of voting in an election like we have today. Is it important? Is it not important? Is it something that should be done or shouldn't be done from a Torah perspective? So on the one hand, there's almost this very close to being a contradiction that Jews always have to live by, which is a fascinating thing. It's like very threading a needle. On the one hand, we don't believe that any government or any person or any individual can harm or benefit Am Yisrael. I mean, on the one hand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge, and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides is what's going to happen. So in that type of a setting, it won't really make a difference if this person's governor or that person's governor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in control of the situation. On the other hand, though, one has to realize that he does have a mitzvah to have and do his due diligence in support of the values of the Torah and the mitzvot. He cannot sit idly allowing for people to come and to take away or try to strip the values of the Torah and the mitzvot. So we end up with this dichotomy. On the one hand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in control of everything, and the ultimate decision of what will happen is solely dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But at the same time, we have a mitzvah to do the utmost that we could possibly do to show that we are defending and supporting the Torah. It comes out, according to that, the mitzvah of voting becomes a very important task, even though sometimes people make a judgment call and they say, well, if I start voting, I'm going to have jury duty, or it takes too long, or all these other calculations. The idea behind voting is that the mitzvah is that I feel and I care about the values of the Torah. How far are you willing to fight for the values of the Torah? So if a little bit of an inconvenience says, you know what, better to not vote because I'm going to be inconvenient, how much does such a person value the ideals and the circumstance of the Torah? So again, what this really shows us is that the person has to pretend almost. It's almost like a pretend that everything is dependent on him, but at the same time realize that it is all dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we actually find this in Chazal. Chachamim themselves had this parallel. On the one hand, they fought their hardest to make sure the line of David HaMelech will never be lost. And on the other hand, they believed full-heartedly that even without them, the line of David HaMelech won't be lost, because that's one of the principles of the Torah. So on the one hand, you have, this is going to happen. David HaMelech's line will never be lost. On the other hand, I have to fight and pretend as if without me, it will never happen. And that is this sort of paradox that is the emet, it is actual truth of how one has to think and envision the world. So we have to go and we have to vote as if without our vote, things will be a disaster, even though we know full well that everything is biyad HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.